Hi everyone, so thank you so much for attending the launch of the Youth VIP's Young People's Perspective on Volunteering research project. So my name's Neve, I'm one of the Youth VIP panel members, and today the event is facilitated by members of the Youth VIP panel who have been involved in quite every stage of the process with this report. So Youth VIP is a multi-organisation initiative which aims to promote inclusive and participatory youth volunteering across Scotland. So it comprises of Young Scot, Volunteering Matters and Youth Link Scotland. And as part of the work, the initiative supports a panel of young people which meets to make the recommendations and take action nationally and in their own communities to improve the volunteering landscape in Scotland. So the Youth VIP project, and this research in particular, contribute to the ambitions of incorporating volunteer voice within the Volunteering Action Plan. And it offers perspectives from young people to inform decision making and practice both on the ground and strategically. So in 2024 to 25, we undertook a research project to create a picture on how youth volunteering in Scotland currently looks. So it kind of said about who is volunteering and why, the barriers preventing young people from accessing these opportunities, and what can be done to make these volunteering opportunities more inclusive, appealing and rewarding for all. So our research project approach employed both surveys and focus groups to gather in-depth qualitative and quantitative data. So for the session today, we're firstly going to be discussing the research processes, through interviews with some of the lovely staff that we've got from the various different branches of Youth VIP. Then we're going to be discussing the key findings and takeaways in terms of the volunteering landscape, the benefits of volunteering as well as the barriers as well, that were all shared in the report. So at that time as well, there's going to be a Menti going. So if you do have a second device that you could use, just make sure you've got that handy. It'll just make sure everything runs smoothly and we don't have any issues with technology at all. Finally, we'll also be discussing the 9 recommendations that have been pulled from the report through the findings that can act as a guide for organisations and their recruitment of youth volunteers. There'll also be a Q&A at the end, so if anyone's got any burning questions that they might want to ask, please put them in the chat and we'll cover that at the end in the Q&A. Just make sure that you stay on mute as well throughout the session, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask the questions that you've got at the end. There will be obviously a few interactive sessions like the Menti, so if anyone's got any major tech difficulty, please use the chat and we'll try and help as much as we can. We'll also have a short comfort break around halfway through, so please feel free to take a break when you need it. So the session will also be recorded, so we can circulate it to those who weren't able to be here today, and the report will be sent to you all directly afterwards as well. So now I'm going to pass on to Gemma, and she is going to talk about the research processes with some of our staff members. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming to the report launch today. I'm Gemma, I'm one of the Youth VIP panel members. And for this section, we're going to take some time to discuss the research process for the report. So we're lucky enough to be joined by Sarah Daniels, who is the Data and Insights Manager at Young Scot, Stuart Wentman, who is the Development Officer for Youth Participation at Youth Link Scotland, and Dr Amy Calder, who is the Senior Policy and Research Officer at Youth Link Scotland. And I'm going to ask some questions to each staff member about the research process. Each staff member has led on different stages of the research, so it'd be amazing to hear all about those different stages. And also it's important to note that at all stages of the process, the Youth VIP panel members were valued partners in the co-design of the report in each stage. So my first question is to Sarah, and I just would love to hear a bit about what was the process of developing the survey.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining today. It sounds like a really good session. So yeah, obviously the Youth VIP panel and process has been going on for a while. I was just brought in around the survey development process. So there had been an earlier version of the survey, so we started with that. Basically, I met with the panel in August 2024. There's a very flattering picture there. We looked at the previous version of the survey. We talked a little bit about kind of principles of delivering a survey, the kind of information you can get more from surveys than focus groups or other sessions. We talked a bit about survey ethics, how to make sure that you're asking balanced questions. And we looked at some of the questions from the previous draft and discussed those. What was really useful was that the panel were able to say, yeah, we want to include that, or prioritize certain questions, and we were also able to get really good options to include in the multiple choice questions from the panel. People brought up options that I hadn't considered, and that just made the overall survey more appropriate, richer, and more reflective of the young people who were filling it in. So yeah, so we gathered options for the multiple choice questions, and then we obviously discussed, we basically built the survey live, the bulk of it during the session, but then took it away, refined, did a spell check basically, and then we tested the finalised draft with volunteers online as well, and that led to the final version, which then went live in October.
Amazing, thank you so much, Sarah. And just the next question for you would be, when the survey was ready to go, how long was it live for? Where was it circulated? And what were those response numbers like?
So it went live on, I think I've got the date on the slide, yes. It went live on 10th of October, 24, and it ran to the 8th of December. So it was just about 2 months, almost exactly. So we were able to incentivize completion using Young Scot membership. So we offered a draw for 4 £25 Love to Shop vouchers, and that just, it just helps people, gets people interested, and kind of pushes them over the edge if they get bored halfway through the survey, essentially, that they'll continue to fill it in. So we promoted it obviously to our Young Scot volunteers through Young Scot membership and the Young Scot membership newsletter. We did some paid promotion on social channels, Instagram and TikTok, but we also used shared the links across practitioner networks, across partners. So YouthLink Scotland and Volunteering Matters were really good at sending the survey link out to youth workers, volunteer organisations and volunteer centres, third sector interfaces as well. And that helped to just make sure that we were reaching young people who volunteer and are engaged, and young people who don't volunteer and aren't engaged as well. Oh yeah, and so you asked who completed the survey. So we got 436 completed responses, which is pretty good. It's higher than the previous version, and pretty much half, almost exactly half, were 50% were active volunteers. Majority female. That tends to be the case with our surveys. That's just something that female respondents were interested in completing. We had around 68% reported that they were white Scottish, white British. Asian was our next most popular ethnic group at 8%, and a really broad spread beyond that. Almost a quarter reported that they had a long-term illness or disability, including neurodiversity. We have 28% had experience of being a young carer, 10% were care experienced themselves. And if you look at the breakdown of postcodes given, around 23% were in the most deprived SIMD quintile. So that's 23% lived in the most deprived 20% of postcodes in Scotland, and 19% in the second most deprived. So we're quite happy that we hit a broad range with the survey, that we have respondents from different kinds of postcodes, different kinds of areas. And almost half live in large urban areas, 27% in other urban areas, but a good proportion from rural areas as well.
Amazing, thank you so much, Sarah. And my next question is to Amy, and that was, how did the team work to decide what the aims of the focus group should be and what we wanted to get out of them?
Thanks, Gemma, and yeah, great to hear from Sarah there as well in terms of the surveys, and that's kind of what really helped us to develop what we were going to do in the focus groups. So the way that we did this is that we held 2 sessions with the Youth VIP panel. One was online, and that's where Sarah sort of presented the key findings that had come from the survey, so we could use that as an opportunity to develop the focus groups. So at that first online session, we kind of discussed what the key themes that were emerging, and we decided on 3 key themes that we wanted to take forward into the focus group. So that was volunteering experience, opportunities and barriers, and this idea around designing a volunteer opportunity as well. So then we held an in-person session with the youth panel for those who were particularly interested in being part of developing the focus groups and helping to run the focus groups on as well. And at that session, so I'd kind of taken those key themes and I developed a rough guide, a topic guide with ideas about questions and potential methods that they could use and activities they could use in the focus groups. So that at that in-person meeting, then we used that as a kind of mock focus group. So as part of that, I was kind of helping to ask the questions, but we also gave the youth panel members an opportunity to practice asking questions of each other. We tested 2 activities at that one. So one of the activities was about completing a community mapping exercise, and we used that as part of the opportunities and barriers to taking part in youth volunteering. We also tested designing a volunteer opportunity, and on the basis of that feedback that we were getting from the youth panel, we went away and tweaked that focus group topic guide. The idea of running it as a mock focus group and giving them the opportunity to be part of testing the questions was that it would help them to develop the skills of how to run a focus group, but also help give them the confidence that they would then be able to go away and run the focus groups as well. At that in-person session as well, we explored ethical issues when it came to running focus groups. So we discussed how we would go about gaining consent from the participants. We talked about ensuring the anonymity of those taking part and kind of how to conduct yourself as a researcher in a focus group. And we talked about the safety of the panel members as researchers, how we were going to keep the participants safe and how we were going to keep the data safe on the other side of that. So that's kind of how we went about planning the focus groups. Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you so much. And my next question is to Stuart. And the question is just, how was it decided which groups of young people to target for the focus groups?
Thank you, Gemma. Yeah, so we had the meeting with the panel members. I think Amy just kind of referenced when we had a lot of the survey data. So for us, it was quite important. We wanted to identify any gaps in the survey, and particularly around particular groups who we perhaps hadn't heard from or were pretty underrepresented in the survey, or also some kind of general ideas and kind of themes that had come out of the survey that we just wanted to find out in a bit more detail. So we ran four focus groups, 2 that took place in person and 2 that took place online. So we had one up in Dundee with a youth group up in Dundee, which was comprised of young males. So young males were quite underrepresented in the survey. I think Sarah's data referred to that. I think it's only 27% respondents were young male. Identified as young males. So that was definitely a target group that we wanted. Also, Dundee as a city as well was pretty underrepresented for, albeit a large urban area, but I think only 2% of responses came from Dundee and that kind of surrounding area, and it is quite a large urban area. So that was somewhere we were quite keen to target. I think what was also quite important about the group in Dundee, and it's quite a common theme throughout, we were very keen to hear from young people who didn't volunteer, and really kind of break down some of those kind of barriers and what is preventing them, because I think naturally with some surveys it can sometimes be more difficult to get young people that don't volunteer to want to take part in a survey about why they don't volunteer. And so I think we're really kind of keen for these focus groups to get that mix from young people who did volunteer, but also target those who didn't and try to find some of the reasons as to why that was. We also had, we ran an online focus group in Shetland. So I think we only had 1 response from Shetland, which obviously quite a low percentage. I don't think we had any other responses from any kind of island communities. So we really wanted to kind of explore that in terms of living quite rural and that kind of island community from there. We ran a focus group in Dumfries and Galloway online. I think Dumfries and Galloway is one of those unique local authority areas. The fact it's so massive, and there are some urban areas with some kind of major kind of towns like Dumfries, but also extreme rurality as well, and that local authority. So we thought that would have given a great mix of, you know, young people's volunteering experiences may well be very different, because their circumstances and their living situation is very different as well. And finally, down in South Ayrshire, so this was done at school down in through South Ayrshire Council, with 15 and 16-year-olds. So this was good. It was split in terms of gender, and it was also split in terms of young people, part of the focus group who had volunteered before and were quite active in volunteering, and also those that hadn't as well. And it was really interesting to get those kind of comparisons and hear that kind of dialogue between them as the focus group went on, just with those different kind of experience from there. So that's who we just decided where to target. We looked at some gaps in the survey, and obviously there was, if we could have done 20 focus groups, we would have done 20 focus groups, a different kind of groups. So obviously we had to kind of make some decisions. So that's who we decided to kind of target and try and find out more from.
Amazing, thank you so much, Stuart. And just another question for you is, how did the focus groups go?
Very well. So I think what was wonderful about the focus group is, as Amy alluded to, in terms of the kind of planning of it, and the YouthVIP panel were kind of instrumental in that, and also in terms of facilitating the focus groups. They're facilitated either entirely by panel members or alongside myself. And actually, at two of the focus groups, it was going to be, I think at one of the young people was ill and kind of dropped out. So I kind of, that's fine. Do you want me to kind of I'll fill in, we can share it. And they were like, no, I'm fine, I've got this. And the panel members just did it all on their own. I just kind of sat there taking the notes, which was great. So I think having the focus groups that were kind of led or co-led by young people just made it easier for the participants in the focus group, as opposed to kind of relax and somebody talking a bit more on their age and their kind of brainwave, rather than sometimes, you know, strange adults kind of coming in to kind of run a focus group. So I think it really made them more effective. There was great discussion, and we got long transcripts. It took, you know, a lot of work to kind of try and kind of decipher, but we got a lot of great kind of information. I think that mixture of young people who did volunteer and also didn't, and we heard different types of voices. We had a real eclectic mixture of voices and circumstances from the young people that we targeted, and that made the information that we got really quite rich.
Amazing, thank you. And my last question was just to Amy, and that was, how did you bring all this data and research together?
Thanks, Gemma. Yeah, and that's really good to get the overview from Stuart. And I think, as Stuart mentioned, there was 4 focus groups, and so what, because the young people had done such an amazing job at running those focus groups, there's a lot of really rich data that came from it. So just to put that into context, that's around about sort of 15 to 20 pages of text per focus group. And so when it comes to analysing the data, you know, you always have a challenge with this. So we had what we did, which is a method that we've used for several research projects. We did what we call a collective coding day. And so that's where we had members of the youth panel with us in person at YouthLink's office. And we had the 4 focus group transcripts in front of us, paper copies. We went old school that day. We also had the survey findings as well. And what we did is we worked as a team in order to pull out all of the key themes that were emerging. We call those in research, we call them codes, but essentially what it is like drawing out those key themes. So I helped facilitate the day where we went through each of the kind of key kind of areas. So, you know, in terms of the opportunities and barriers, the designing that opportunity, and everything that was coming out of that. So we went through those key themes as a team. You can see here that on the picture, we could write on the walls. So every time a key theme was coming out, we'd write it on the walls. And this is for the designing a focus, designing a volunteering opportunity. We started to map out what that might look like based on what we were hearing from the data. The great thing about doing this, it means that the young people were part of the process at each stage of this, and they were really key and instrumental in the analysis. It also gave us that opportunity as a small team to then reflect on what it was that we were hearing from the data. What was the data telling us, and what could we take out of that? And we used that to inform the development of the report then. So at the end of that day, we had a structure for how the report would be written. And we also had an opportunity to talk about, and I know we're going to come on to that, in terms of the key recommendations. So based on what we were learning and what was coming out of those focus groups, we could talk about the recommendations we're taking forward. Yeah, thanks, Gemma.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of your incredible responses. It was amazing to hear your insights and to get some more information about the research process that went into the report. And now we're going to be moving on to the next section, where we're going to be taking a look at some of the research findings and takeaways from the report. and we're going to split it up into 3 key areas. So we're going to be looking first at the youth volunteering landscape in Scotland, then a bit about the the benefits that came through in the report, and then lastly the barriers. And we're going to start by looking at the current volunteering landscape in Scotland. So myself and Neve are going to be hosting a small quiz on the volunteering landscape. So hopefully a bit fun, a bit lighthearted, and you can get your feeling competitive. Hopefully this should be a bit fun. So if you have a second device or of your phone or something, if you could scan the QR code on the screen there, or if not, or if you're working on a different tab on your laptop, feel free to just type in menti.com on Google or open a new window. Is everyone potentially in? Everyone? Okay, I think I'll take the silences. Most people are in. I think so. For the first question on the Menti here, we'd like you to rank the answers from most popular to least popular when the survey had asked if young people volunteer. I think some of you have already started doing that, so I'll just give you a minute to lock in your answers, and then we'll have a look at them. Okay, hopefully everyone's had some time to put in their answers. So as you can see from the results here for what you thought, and first we've got I would like to volunteer, and second we've got I've volunteered before but I don't right now, and then in last place we've got no, why should I volunteer? So we'll have a look at what the answers were to this one, and as you can see, up in with almost half the respondents, or 50%, said that they do volunteer right now. 25% said they have volunteered before but they don't right now. 11% said they do not and have never volunteered. 18% said that they would quite like to volunteer, and 2% said no, why should I volunteer? So you got the end, that kind of at the lowest response was no, why should I volunteer? So on to the next question. Would like for you to rank these answers from most to least popular when the survey asked why young people volunteer. I think some people have already filled it out as well, so I'll just give you a few seconds to just fill that out. Okay, so I think most people should have had the opportunity to answer there. So in first place, we've got for work experience or my CV. So the majority of you did think that maybe young people volunteer to get work experience or to put on their CV. And second, we've got personal skill development. Then we've got to help others, passionate because, social reasons, or new friends, and to get an award. So if we go on to I'll not recap all of them. I'll just go through kind of the highest. So first with 36% of respondents saying they started volunteering to help others. And second, we do have, with 34%, we do have for work experience and CV. And then as you can see on the screen, that's the rest of the responses. So, and down at 8%, so the kind of lowest was they needed to do it for school and college. So now I'm going to pass you on to Neve, who is going to take you through the next few questions on our little Menti quiz.
Thanks, Gemma. So the first question we've got here is which type of volunteering was undertaken by the most young people who completed the survey? So I'll give you a few minutes to fill that out and share your answers. So interesting responses. We've got volunteering in schools with the highest at the moment, and fundraising being the least likely to be undertaken by young people. So if we move on to the answers now, we have the highest actually being 31% of people volunteer within a local organisation. And let's have a look here. 28% helping within a youth group. 23% actually fundraising, so quite the opposite to what people had actually expected. And yeah, so some quite different responses there. And if we want to move on to the next question, please. Thank you. Which way of finding out about volunteering opportunities ranked the highest in the survey? I'll give you a few minutes to answer that. Okay, so we've got nobody thinks volunteering website. We've got the highest response for friends and family, social media as well is quite high, and school and university. So let's have a look at the real responses. Yeah, so through friends and family with 30%, through school and university with 26%, and the lowest when looking for paid jobs at 3%. So quite interesting responses and getting to see that comparison as well. So yeah, that is our quiz for today. Thank you so much for taking part. I don't think we're as good as Ant and Dick, but we do try. We're getting there. So now we're going to pass on to Shona, who's going to talk about the benefits that came out about volunteering and the report.
Thank you, Eve. So following on from why people got into volunteering, we wanted to look at their experiences of volunteering, what benefits that they got from volunteering. So as part of the survey, we asked them what benefits that they saw from volunteering. And 55 of the respondents said that they gained skills that they use in work and education. 52% said that they use volunteering on their CV. 51% said that they'd gained confidence. 49% said that they'd gained life experience. What else? 36% that they said they'd made connections within the community. So obviously we can see that people have a wide variety of benefits that they saw when they volunteered. We also got some respondents in the survey with what people said they saw. So one person said that it helped them make social connections that have changed them as a person, which had a positive impact on their mental health. And someone else said that they learned how to manage money in a professional sense, and that they were able to work with co-workers, and they learned how to manage different situations with customers. So other young people saw that they had benefits to the wider community when they volunteered. So one respondent said that they remodeled the youth space building, which then made the building made it look newer and brought some new people in. Somebody else said that volunteering with a local organisation helped them make a positive impact in the community through working in the community fridge and the cafe. And that helped local people in the community who were struggling with money, and helped them do something that was inexpensive for free. So obviously you can see that young people have had a wide range of benefits when they volunteer, both to themselves and in the wider community, and that it's really important that we should make sure that these volunteering opportunities are as accessible as possible, so as many people can volunteer as possible. I'm going to pass over to Sean, who's going to talk about the barriers to volunteering.
So I'm going to talk about the barriers to volunteering that we found out through the survey. So of the young people surveyed who had never volunteered, 89% said that they would like to volunteer in the future, which emphasised the need to make volunteering as open and accessible as possible for all young people. We therefore must listen to the barriers and negative experiences young people face when volunteering and actively try to mitigate these to make participation achievable for all. So due to time, I'm just going to pick out some barriers and then we're going to all think about possible ways to overcome them through questions in the Menti. But please do see the report after this session for more barriers that came through in the research. So the first barrier that I'm going to focus on is the poor communication of volunteering opportunities and how they can be vague / unclear on what the expectations are. So in the report, it says that young people find that communicating and publicising of volunteering opportunities to be a major barrier for them to get involved. These opportunities must get to young people in a way that works and is accessible for them. From the 310 responses to the survey about how young people found out about volunteering opportunities, the answer which got most acknowledgements that wasn't informally through friends and family was through school at only 26%. The feedback from the Dundee focus group came through strongly that from their experience, the communication of opportunities is awful. That's what the Dundee focus group said. This sentiment was shared by the groups in Shetland and Dumfries and Galloway, who cited themselves and other young people in their community have a lack of awareness of volunteering opportunities. The group in South Ayrshire also communicated that there weren't enough opportunities to volunteer coming to them where they could access them. They went on to say not only was there a lack of general communication of available opportunities, but those that are communicated lacked clarity in the role, what will be expected of them, and what the benefits of taking part in the opportunity were. So, and one of the people said, what you could get out of it can be vague. They cited that the organisation who the actual opportunity is with and the role would often be missing. A further barrier conveyed by the South Ayrshire group stemming from this poor communication and connection was that young people can feel intimidated by not knowing who to contact and feel awkward about reaching out to organisations they don't know. They explained some young people would find having to reach out off-putting, and not having a link between them and the new organisation would prevent some from taking up an opportunity. We'll then move on to a Menti. So Menti time again, woohoo! So this is just to get your ideas flowing of the ways that you think as an organisation that you can overcome this barrier of the lack of communication. So if you just want to put your responses in, what do you think organisations could do to improve their effective communication of volunteering opportunities to young people? I'll just give you a minute or so to put in your responses. Perfect. I can already see that the responses are going. I like the first response saying ask young people. Yep, go directly to young people. That is perfect. I love that. Photo of person that they need to contact. If they're comfortable with that, yes, that would be great. Dedicated outreach. That's good. Showcase the benefits. Yep. And multiple methods of getting in touch. Perfect. Loving these responses, by the way. Okay, I think that might be everybody responded. So I will then move on to the next bit that we're going to focus on. The second thing that we're going to focus on is lack of interest and opportunities and how valuable young people's time is. Therefore, it's really important that these opportunities are interesting, meaningful, and rewarding. The report says that a barrier which featured in the survey and was detailed much further in the focus group sessions was around the lack of volunteering opportunities that young people found interesting and engaging. 43% of those surveyed who didn't volunteer cited no interest in opportunities in my area as a reason why, and 22% cited no opportunities which are for people like me in the area. Our focus group sessions all further emphasised this being a barrier for them to accessing volunteering opportunities. A participant from Shetland stated that despite there being opportunities promoted in the local area, they just never found it interesting. Similar sentiments were expressed from participants in our Dundee and South Ayrshire sessions. We all know that young people's lives can be extremely busy with commitments to education, family, care and responsibilities, clubs/hobbies, etc. My time is precious, said one participant during a Dundee session, who expressed how much homework and lack of free time they had in their daily lives. 38% of survey respondents who didn't volunteer chose I don't have the time as a reason why, and 8% also gave volunteering is not how I want to spend my time as a reason. Many young people regularly view their free time as important, and therefore, if they're encouraged to give this free time to volunteering opportunities, these opportunities have to be interesting and appealing to them. We'll then just do another quick Menti, just to get your thoughts on what can organisations do to ensure their volunteering opportunities are interesting, engaging and rewarding for young people. Just give you another minute or so to just put your responses in. Perfect. I'm loving the responses again that we are getting. Offer the opportunity to develop skills. Provide relevant benefits, e.g. skills development. Tailored opportunities for young people. Ask young people what would make an opportunity interesting, etc. So going directly to young people as well. Loving that. And then lead with the benefits/fun parts rather than listing responsibilities. Maybe quotes from existing volunteers about what they can get out of volunteering. Again, I am absolutely loving these responses. They are all really interesting and good ideas. So for the last part of this, I'm just going to summarize the rest of the barriers. But if you are interested in reading more about them, you can after this meeting, you'll get the report, so you can then look at them in more further detail in the report. But further barriers were not being accessible for young people with disabilities, such as long-term illnesses, public transport in rural areas not allowing young people to engage consistently and having to rely on parents/others to drive them, volunteering opportunities taking place at times where public transport is even less reliable, for example, late at night and on Sundays, negative perceptions about volunteering still existing, that it's uncool, a waste of time, and for older people. And finally, young people feeling that they aren't awarded enough for volunteering roles.
Now we're going to take a look at the recommendations. So through reflecting on the barriers and being guided by young people who took part in the research on what high quality volunteering looks like for them, 9 recommendations have been formed. And these recommendations aim to act as a guide for organisations looking to recruit and retain young people as volunteers, how they can best communicate and recruit, make their opportunities as inclusive and as flexible as possible, and ensure that young people are getting the most out of their volunteering. So these recommendations focus on clarity, volunteer management, communication, friends, recognition, variety and quality, flexibility, transport, and equality, diversity and inclusion. So we're now going to take a closer look and go into more detail about these recommendations. So I think first I'm passing on to Niamh to talk about clarity.
Yes, thank you. I've had quite the personal experience with volunteering with Clarity. So, for example, through being an I Will ambassador, we use a platform called Be Collective, which is really good for including lots of details about volunteering opportunities, such as where it's going to be, dates and times, how long you need to take part in the opportunity for, and what is expected of you when you go into that as well. And that's really good, just not only for the communication between the volunteer and the volunteer manager, just getting to see what you're really going to get out of the opportunity, and being able to plan ahead in terms of things like transport and communication. But also I found it really helpful communication between myself and family members as well. So, for example, if I was going to an opportunity, for example, down in London, I would be able to go to my parents and say, oh, it's here, it's this time, this date, can we figure out like plans in terms of travel and accommodation? So just having that detail really does help with the communication and just makes it a lot less stressful for the volunteers, and just allows them to get the best out of the opportunity, I think, as well. So.
Next recommendation was about volunteer management, and this was about making sure those who are in volunteer management positions have been properly trained to support the needs of the young volunteers, to make sure that all the young volunteers, feel supported by those in management positions, especially because they're giving up their free time, and they should feel like they're being treated fairly and the same as those who are maybe in a paid position. I volunteer with Girl Guiding, and very much for that role I had to do first aid training, and they were very clear about when the training was, and it was very flexible, but I knew what dates I was able to do it, and it was free of charge because I was a volunteer, so that made it a lot more accessible. And yes.
Perfect. So communication is all about taking volunteering opportunities directly to where young people are, such as schools, youth work settings, and on social media. So a message that came through really clearly from the focus groups was that young people are far more likely to take up volunteering opportunities if it's brought to them in places and formats that are familiar and accessible to them. So when asked how volunteering could be made easier for young people to get involved in, 67% of young people selected better links between schools and volunteering. And schools can often act as a hub of connection for young people at different stages of their lives, so that they can also act as a great way to provide, promote and support both internal and external volunteering opportunities. But despite this, only 26% of young people surveyed selected school or university as a way that they hear about volunteering opportunities. And this therefore suggests that there needs to be a stronger link between schools and volunteering. And for the interest of time, I'm not going to recap all of what communication is because it's very varied and it covers a lot of different areas, including social media and that kind of thing. So obviously you'll get sent the report after this call. So if you want to have a look more about that. But for me, I can speak to volunteering and I think a lot of other young volunteers will share this kind of similar sentiment in that once you get in one volunteering opportunity, it's really easy to find out about other opportunities through the groups, and you find another and another, and it just snowballs from there. But a lot of young people within my community struggle to find that initial volunteering opportunity because they don't see it advertised and they're not really being met where they're at, and it's kind of they're struggling to get that initial. It's not as if the passion is not there, but they're just struggling to get that initial opportunity. So definitely, if there was a lot more collaboration and communication is made a focus, more young people would be able to get involved. And then I think I'm also going to talk about friends. So evidence from the report illustrated that the thought of volunteering alone was putting many young people off volunteering and acting as a barrier for participation, especially for those who are younger. And as a result, it was suggested that being able to bring a friend would make volunteering seem a lot less daunting and more appealing for young volunteers. Showing up for the first day of anything, I'm sure a lot of you agree, can be really, really scary. And young people may feel intimidated by the idea of applying for the role and then also fulfilling the role itself themselves. So through their volunteering experience, though, young volunteers can develop their confidence and they may feel a lot more comfortable after that, stepping into different roles. But having that initial comfort of having a friend present at their very first meeting or their very first opportunity can really help them get their foot in the door. And Niamh, would you like to share your experience with this recommendation?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Gemma. So for example, one of the first opportunities that I did was Duke of Edinburgh, and I completed this alongside my best friend, which made me a lot more comfortable, specifically when we went away to do the expedition. Something that I was quite nervous about, but having that helping hand there, it really just makes you feel so much more comfortable, and it makes you really want to push yourself to try new opportunities. So it's so important to be able to have the opportunity to bring a friend with you.
So the next recommendation was recognition. That young people take up volunteering for many reasons, and many of them in the survey said that they wanted to be recognised for what they're doing and for the time that they were giving up. So recognition can come in many forms, but it's really important that people feel like they're being acknowledged. Some ways you can recognise the volunteering that young people are doing is through Duke of Edinburgh or Saltire Awards, and skill and personal development. In the survey, we asked, would you be more likely to start volunteering or take a volunteering role if you knew it would increase your chance of getting a job or into college or university? And 84.7% of the respondents replied with yes. So we can really see that recognition is really important to those young people. But obviously recognition doesn't necessarily need to be through an award or skill development. It can be thanking volunteers for their contribution or welcoming new volunteers onto the team and treating them fairly like everyone else. Obviously through my volunteer role with Girl Guiding, just after Volunteers Week, the local volunteer committee sent out a postcard and a badge to everyone in the area to thank them for their volunteering and for their commitment over the previous year. And that was really nice to see that they recognised all the stuff we did over the past year. And it was a really nice feeling that they saw everyone was doing, giving up their hard work, and giving up the free time to do that.
I'm now going to talk about another recommendation, which is variety and quality. So to offer a variety of quality opportunities for young people. So I've had personal experiences of this. I have volunteered now for 5 years, so I've taken on a variety of different high quality roles within volunteering. My CV could literally be 10 pages. I'm not gonna lie, my CV could be so many pages. But for me, like, I got the opportunities to go to conferences. I got the opportunities to present, so work on my presentation skills as I have anxiety. So working on those presentation skills allowed me to sort of build up the confidence and just and also helped me with university because I have to do presentations as well. I got the opportunities to facilitate stuff. I got like youth work, like focus groups, all that stuff. I got different opportunities to facilitate. So just given and also another thing that one organization that I volunteer with was that if there was another volunteering opportunity, they would send it directly to us and be like, here's this opportunity. If you're interested, this is how you apply. So keeping us in the loop of other volunteering opportunities that we can also apply for as well. So this is, from my personal experience, offering a variety of quality opportunities for young people keeps it fresh, keeps them engaged, etc. I'm then going to talk about the next recommendation, which is flexibility. So making your volunteering opportunities flexible and time appropriate to the other commitments of young people. And for me, I've had an experience recently of this. So I started my first year of university last year, and I didn't know what my time commitments were going to be like because I was just starting a new big step in my journey, and I had to take some time off because it was starting to get overwhelming. Like, university was starting to get overwhelming. It was starting to get a little bit too much. So I had to take some time away from volunteering, and the staff members were like, that's okay, we understand. And we're like, you can take time off, all that stuff. And what I also like about I have experience of this is that staff members making sure to every so often just say, remember that this is voluntary, you can pop in, pop out whenever you like. So just making sure that young people know that that they can pop in and pop out anytime, that's okay. And also even for other volunteering opportunities I've had, saying at the beginning, okay, so how often do you want to volunteer? Do you want to volunteer week? Let's say it's a weekly opportunity, be like, do you want to volunteer weekly or fortnightly or monthly? And just this, working around the young person's schedules. And because young people, they do get busy a lot, as we've seen within the report. They get busy with exams, they get busy with family, they get busy with other commitments. So just making sure to understand their situation and be like, okay, how can we work around this?
So I'm just going to quickly talk about transport. So from the report, we had a young person say from Dumfries and Galloway that without the support from youth work, that they just wouldn't be able to volunteer in the way that they do. So as someone as well who used to live in quite rural areas and then moved to more central places, I have kind of had both the either not being able to get out of where I live without relying on my parents to take me everywhere. There was no local train stations nearby, one bus that ran every hour, and now living so close to train stations, bus stops, it just shows how much transport is such a big factor in volunteering and being able to have access to public transport, or even just having these opportunities in local communities that are in walking distance for these young people to get to. It just makes it so much easier for young people to get involved and make sure that they're having the chance to still share their voice without having transport being an issue for them.
So I'm going to be talking about this with Shona. So our last one is number 9, which is equality, diversity and inclusion. So commit to understanding and tackling barriers young people may face to volunteering, invest in making your opportunities accessible, and training staff and volunteers in inclusive practices. Shona, do you have anything to say about this?
This recommendation, it was recommended by the panel after the research had been made and all the recommendations had been written up. And we felt like it was really important to cover this topic, as it's really important for everyone to get involved with volunteering, even if they've got like a disability, or like just making sure it's really a diverse group of people getting involved. Do you have anything else to say, Sean?
No, I just echo what you say, like making sure that, you know, like if there is a barrier, just working with a young person, how can we, instead of instead of automatically saying no to like you can't do this because of this barrier, just like try and work around it with the young person and be like, okay, how can we help you overcome this barrier? Like, how can we make it more accessible and all of that? So trying to make sure that they can take part in volunteering as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. One of the respondents to the survey said that they had a disability and found it really hard to navigate communicating this with their volunteer when they're volunteering, and they often had to resort to not saying anything to avoid complications or to change how other people would perceive them and what they were capable of.
So I'm just going to be talking a little bit now about the recommendations in action. So using our research findings and being steered directly by the voices of young people, we've created a model example of what good promotion of a volunteering opportunity should look like and what it should contain. So when asked about what type of volunteering opportunities would be of interest to them, a respondent from the Dundee focus group said that they love spending time at a local skate park and would be keen to volunteer there if they were given the opportunity. And using this, we've created a mock Instagram post, as you can see on the screen there, which clearly communicates what the role entails and includes what young people think is important when it comes to evaluating the value of a volunteer role for them. So as you can see, the post clearly states the time commitment and the frequency of the opportunity, what the volunteer will get out of the opportunity, both in terms of building skills for CVs and improving their confidence, and the opportunity to bring a friend along so that young people don't have to come alone, as we kind of highlighted the importance of that earlier with the recommendations. And it can be really challenging to fit all of the necessary information in a post while keeping it still aesthetically pleasing. So the caption below would ideally elaborate on the content of the post, give more detail about the role, the skills that would be developed, etc. And in practice, this could sound something like volunteering opportunity at Dundee Skate Park, 1 hour every 2 to 3 weeks. Help others and yourself build confidence, develop communication skills by helping other young people learn how to skate, get first aid training, learn skate park maintenance and teaching beginner level skating, and get involved here. And then that would include a link to our website. So it's clear that young people want organisations to use social media to promote volunteering opportunities, as this means that they're interacting with young people in a medium that is familiar to them, and on platforms that they spend a lot of time on, like Instagram and TikTok. But for these to be effective, the posts have to be engaging. They have to contain key information about the opportunity and with a link to a website or a QR code where they can find out more. And this example, which was directed by young people, showcases some of these key features and shows you how, as an organisation, for example, could put this into practice. And I think now I'm going to pass you over to Sean.
Thank you. So now this is going to be a Q&A part where you'll be able to ask Stuart from YouthLink Scotland, Fraser from Volunteer Matters, and the YouthVIP panel questions, and we'll try and answer them as much as possible. And I will be chairing this Q&A as well. That's my chair theme tune. So if you just want to put in the chat any questions that you have, and we will try and answer. And do not worry if your question doesn't get answered today. In the last bit of the Menti, there will be emails for two of the staff members, and you can feel free to email them your question, and they'll try and answer it as much as possible as well. So yep.
Stunned into silence.
I've made it so you can also put your hand up and unmute now,
audience members.
Thank you, Liz. So if you can also put your hand up and unmute yourself and ask a question as well. See, we've got one from Michelle.
Hi everybody, and thanks for everything that you've shared with us today. Some great insight there. I'm Michelle, I'm from Developing Young Workforce, and I was just wondering your thoughts on whether the school curriculum should have volunteering as a mandatory element to it, or at least a choice. It's probably a big question to ask, and everyone will have different views in there, but I'm really keen to see that volunteering becomes a wider part of what young people can do in their school time, and not have to necessarily make the extra time to get involved, and they have that opportunity through their school to do this. And I know that, you know, through different awards you can do that, but it has to be attached to something. And I just wondered what people's views were on that, so I thought I'd throw that in there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. Does anybody from the panel or staff members want to comment on this question? Yep, Niamh.
Yeah, so this is quite relevant to experiences I've had as well, but I think with regarding to making volunteering part of curriculum, a really good way of doing this is, for example, like the leadership award that is run a lot in schools, which is an SQA qualification. But even just being able to speak to teachers and say like the importance of the skills that you get out of having volunteering and taking part in volunteering, and then them being able to take that and put that out into their school community. So for example, even if it's older pupils as well, running things like volunteering workshops, or even just having basic leadership roles within the school, such as they do it from primary school age, obviously, like litter picking, like all those kind of things, like just those basic volunteering opportunities. They're like a core thing that you can do in schools for those who might not be able to have the time outside of school to do it, with how busy the school curriculum can get sometimes.
Perfect. Thank you, Niamh. Does anybody else want to comment, or shall we move on to another question?
I'll comment very quickly. Sorry, I know I said I'd try and let just the panel speak, but I just talk a lot. Yeah, I think it's extremely important, and we do actually. It's not self-promotion. We do have a volunteering in schools champion resource that we launched last year, and it really tries to hammer home the importance of that. And I think, for me, I think partnership working is probably key to look to embed this further within schools, and it's something that I think we're really keen to get across to people in education in schools, because teachers and things, I think obviously they've got to buy into it, you know, and I think capacity wise in schools are, you know, the exceptionally high kind of workload and things. So I think sometimes there's maybe a perception that it'll all fall on them, whereas I think for us it's about trying to encourage partnership working both with the youth work sector, who, you know, have great links in school. A lot of schools do have a dedicated kind of youth work team in it, which is great, but, you know, capacity wise, and, you know, not all kind of schools have that, but also with, you know, local organisations like yourselves, like kind of local TSIs. You know, we had a great example when we had our launch the schools resource with Fife Voluntary Action, who are doing a pilot with a school in Kirkcaldy, Balweary, I think, and they've done exceptional things. And the number of young people they've kind of got through achieving their Saltire Award to volunteering in school, they've got such a great example that they're going to look to roll out kind of wider to schools after this pilot school in Kirkcaldy. So I think, yeah, I think it's extremely important, and I think it's trying to maybe get that message across about partnership working is a lot of the way to go. It doesn't all have to fall in the school. There is kind of help out there and kind of working with youth work, TSIs, national organisations, whoever it might be, to kind of share that workload and share that responsibility. I think it's a key way that we would hopefully look to see schools embed it a little further, because as I think the survey showed, you know, young people's time is very precious. So, you know, volunteering out with school time might not be achievable. They might not have the time to do so. Yet if there's ways to embed it within that school curriculum, then 100%. And I think partnership working's a real kind of positive strength. We've got a lot of great organisations in Scotland. I think it's just about trying to make those links and that cohesion and that kind of joined up way of thinking and working. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to speak.
Thank you, Stuart. Is there any other questions? Yep, Amanda?
Hiya, I'm with them. This is Mandy.
This is Katie.
I'm one of our young people. I was just wondering how you would get to people who are sort of in between things, who aren't necessarily going on to the next step of life. So people who are having a year out and haven't decided what they wanted to do next, or how to just re-include people into something which they have passed on from. And I think volunteering is a great idea for that, but getting to people to get them interested is really difficult. So if you've got ideas on that, that would be great.
Perfect, thank you for your question. Does anybody from the panel or staff members want to jump in on that question? Yep, Gemma?
I cut down. I initially, full confession, had a whole thing prepared when I went to talk about communication, then cut it down because I thought I was talking too much, but it is relevant here. So I'm just going to kind of say that. I think obviously when you're, I'll put my hand down. Obviously when you're kind of in that stage where you're between school and maybe going on to something else, you're not in those spaces where you maybe are going to be able to be reached by like the schools. You're not going to be able to like be involved in anything being advertised through schools, or maybe you're not involved with a group through like a workplace or anything. It's worth noting that during the survey, young people advocated for the use of social media to advertise volunteering opportunities. I've got the statistic here, 69% of survey respondents, when they asked how volunteering could be made easier to get involved in, stated that they would want to make it easier to find interesting opportunities. But despite the fact that young people regularly engage with social media platforms such as like Instagram and TikTok, and many organisations do advertise opportunities via social media, only 13% of respondents cited social media as a way in which they heard about these. So these statistics kind of coupled with feedback from young people in Dundee and South Ayrshire, suggest that this advertising by way of social media is something that young people want to get involved in. And it's something that needs to be done more frequently and in better quality and detail to be able to access and really connect with those young people. So I think if there was a lot of focus put into kind of advertising via social media from an organisation's point of view, they'd be able to reach those young people that maybe are kind of, they're not attached to a school, they're not attached to a workplace or a specific youth group. As you're really, young people spend a lot of time on social media. I think it's just in a digital age, like everyone's kind of got one social media account or another, and we use it really frequently. And it's a medium that we're all so familiar with. So really, if you were kind of in that stage where you're looking and you're just looking for an opportunity and you're looking for something that interests you, social media can be an amazing way of kind of reaching out to young people and reaching a wider audience from across a whole wide geographical area. I don't know if that was kind of answers your question. I just thought I'd put it in there.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you, Gemma. Do we have any more questions? I'm going to take the silence as maybe it's a no. Does anybody else want to add to the last question, or shall we move on? I mean, I can add something to the last question. Is like as Gemma mentioned, like also like going to where like the young people are as well. So like going to like the places that they might hang out in, going to like the other, like, you know, like contacting our groups, speaking to the young people from their groups, letting them, making them aware of the opportunities is also a good way. I know, like, for example, when I was in high school, I was going to an LGBTQ plus youth group, and there was a volunteering opportunity that was going to happen in my local area, and they contacted the person that ran the youth group saying, can I come and speak to young people and share this opportunity? So then they came and shared the volunteering opportunity, which then later got on, which I then later took part in, and that was like my first big opportunity. So making sure to use, like, collaborate with other organizations and, you know, go visit the groups of young people they already have is also another good way of reaching young people as well. Okay, perfect. Shall we move on? So the voices of young people consistently highlight a need for greater inclusivity, flexibility, and clarity in volunteering opportunities. They want volunteering that is social, purposeful, rewarding, and relevant to their lives. A lot of young people have a desire to engage in volunteering, but opportunities have to be designed specifically for the needs of young people. This report and its recommendations will hopefully act as a springboard for change in how volunteering opportunities are designed, structured, and communicated to young people. So please study these recommendations and think how you can embed and implement in your own organisation or the organisations you work with and support. The report will be sent out to all attendees and will be uploaded to the YouthVIP website. We will also be sending out an event evaluation form as well as an equalities and monitoring form, and we'd really appreciate if you could complete these at your earliest convenience. And as I said, if anybody has any other questions that they think of after this event, like, oh, like maybe I should have said that, there's 2 emails there of Liz from YouthLink Scotland and Stuart from YouthLink Scotland, who you can then email over to your question and then they can answer it. And I just wanted to thank all the panel members and the Stuart and Fraser taking part in the Q&A, and for the people who asked the questions. So thank you everybody for attending. We hope that you really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day.